Hi everyone. Now you may have seen today's rather rather divisive title of today's video, which was Programming Metal Drums is Really Easy. And today's video, I'm going to argue that it is. But... And to discuss it with me is my good friend Scott from Chernobyl Studios. Hello.
Hello there. Hi there. How's it going? Good to be back. Good. It's been a long time since we've done anything, actually. We always talk about streaming, but we somehow schedules.
Yeah, we miss each other like ships in the night. It happens, unfortunately, with children and production schedules and such.
Absolutely. So, but here we are.
Yes.
And
so
let's do this. I'm sure people are pretty interested.
Yeah, people are already typing in the comments, oh, it's actually not that easy. How dare you? Blah, 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 blah. So, before we reveal the secret of why programming drums is really easy, let's just mention quickly that the kind of, there is a subtext and an underlying reason why we were doing this video. And that is that Scott has a new course on exactly this subject. Take it away.
All right, course is Metal Drum Programming Mastery. Extremely creative name. I've never used the word mastery in a course before. Sarcasm aside. Yeah, so that's the ball I'm going with, that it's not that hard, technically speaking. So that's the caveat that I really want to make here. Technically programming drums, it's not hard. But think of it like the iceberg, right? There's a tip, right, that is above water, and then there's this generally a gigantic part of the iceberg below water. Now, technically programming them, as in putting them on the grid and all that stuff, that's the iceberg above the water. But I would really want to focus on what's below the water, which is what Adam and I are going to talk about now. And bring everything down one. And we can bring this velocity down ever so slightly, just a little bit. So it's like 90. There we go, just like that. So it sounds even more realistic.
Yes. So, I mean, would it be fair to say that the secret to being really good at programming drums is to be a really good drummer?
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah. So this is actually, I thought about this, and I don't know if I've even made it known that I'm a drummer first. I play guitar, but I never played in a band as a guitarist. I've always been a drummer.
Mr. Guitar Tone Mastery is a drummer.
Oh, Jesus. Refund. No. So the thing about that is I've recorded in studios. I've run into a lot of those problems that Glenn talks about, like hitting the hi-hat too hard, stuff like that. I've had those conversations. When I played in all over the States, I toured Southwest America. I played a show in Mexico. I played in Russia. So I have quite a bit of live drumming experience, as well as learning how to play the drums, physically, and what that means with what your hands are doing and your feet. So all the internal knowledge of being a drummer is what I'm putting into this. And that's really what I'm talking about, the iceberg under the water. All of this that's happening here, in comparison, makes the iceberg poking out above the water like, it's not really a big deal.
Yeah, but it's funny that kind of, I think we're probably on a similar level in terms of programming drums. I had to spend a good 10 to 15 years learning how to do it, though. And that definitely isn't something you need to do. And here's the thing. I'm not a very good drummer physically. Mm-hmm. But in my head, I know what's going on, right? So you've come at it from the angle of knowing how to do it physically first and translating that, right?
So it's really interesting how this... Yeah, sorry, I had a little bit of delay here. Yeah. So it's really interesting how this sort of came about, because it's not like I, like Back to the Future, hit my head on the sink and, I have an idea. I one-on-one clients, a lot of mixing clients, and the questions I was starting to see a pattern. They're always the same. It's like, it's not, hey, what velocity is doing? It's like, how do I know what drum beat to put in here? or I would look at that and go, yeah, a drummer's not going to play it like that. Or a drummer would do this, most likely. A drummer, it's not going to work. And here's why. Ergonomically speaking, for example. Or, a lot of the classic mistakes where it's hi-hats through the whole song. No ride, one crash. Just things that's not something a drummer would ever do in real life. So a lot of my personal experience playing drums physically and understanding it translated into drum programming. Now, the other thing, when Adam says 10 to 15 years of learning how to do it, that's not applicable anymore, because when I started in 2001, programming drums was as shitty as what it sounded like. In Cakewalk Pro Audio 9, you open it and it's literally one click at a time, because the Reaper didn't exist. We didn't have these scripts and these mouse modifiers. Maybe I can show you a couple of them in the video here in just a second, but the process now is an order of magnitude easier than I could have ever have dreamed it being when I started in 2001. Because back then, it was even easier than what it had been 10 years prior, which you get your little module, and you got your little pads, and now you got to do math, and then program it all like that on this little screen. Yeah, I mean, that's like the before times. So right now, technically programming drums couldn't be easier, in my opinion. It's all the why do I need to do it this way? How can I do it this way? And so the questions that were really coming up were not, what velocity do I use? It's, how can I get better at programming? How can I improve my creativity? How can I know what the rudiment does on which hand? How do I know, how the hi-hat works? So a lot of people, to my amazement, didn't understand a hi-hat is it's a complex thing. It's two cymbals attached with a clutch on a rod with a chain and a pedal. And there's infinite amount of articulations that you can do in the real life with it, not just open hi-hats, right? And
right.
As an aside, hi-hats were the bane of programming existence for a long time, because it just always sounded really bad. So a lot of people just used the ride cymbal all the time. But now we have libraries that do, open articulations at various degrees, closed articulations with the tip, with the shaft or the shank. And if you don't know what that is, I talk about the different parts of the stick, because they have different sounds. What a pedal is, what a open and what a hi-hat bark is. All these things that real drummers do all the time that take zero effort. Where programming, you kind of, oh, okay, I get it now. So it almost never, the questions were never, hey, how do I draw double bass? Well, they understand that part. It's all the intricacies of how is this actually played? How can this sound good? So if you're following along here, it's not a technical process. What I'm really pushing forward here with my course is that drum programming is and should be a musical and creative process. Let me give you another argument here. Let's say, for example, I'm going to write a symphonic metal song. I want to write some string lines. Do you think it would help if I knew, for example, the range of a violin, what octaves it plays in, how the articulations are made, how the bow works, how they play, what a legato sounds like? We look at that and you're thinking probably, Adam, well, yeah, duh. It's exactly the same with drums. So a lot of the poor results that people are coming up with their drum programming has nothing to do with them being bad at drum. There's nothing to do with that. It's not even their fault. It's just they are over here thinking that it's just a technical task that they need to get it done with ASAP, instead of understanding, oh, wait a minute. Now, a drummer is actually a person, and there's a process. There's a musical, creative flow and a process that you can get into, and then for us as, musicians who are programming them, programming is just the vehicle to express that. So that's the long spiel of it, of what I wanted to say. And so it's not just clickbait that programming metal drums is really easy. Technically, it is. But
you have to understand it from a fundamental
correct.
level as where you would, yeah. So here's another question. You said not many of the people were asking you, like, how many velocity should I use? For the people who did ask those questions, did you find that the answer was always, what would a drummer do?
Yeah, so
which brings us back to the same questions.
Yeah, it always goes back. And then what I was finding out is, this is true story. So I got a client. They written all the drums. Were pretty good, and they're like, "Yeah, I humanized it too." And I opened it, and I could just by looking at it, I knew that all they had done is just hit H on the keyboard in Reaper and just did an algorithm for humanized it. There, it's humanized. No, you humanize strategically, because as you know, you say, how does a drummer actually play on the hi-hat? You can't just humanize it and then you get all this weird stuff. It's not realistic sounding. I talk about that. I talk about, hey, there's a pulse to this. You know, there's a way that the hand moves. So like every downbeat, the hi-hat plays louder because we play in unison with our hands. And there's like, da, 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 da. See, that's how you get the groove, right? And I talk about how to build that. And I use slate drums in the course. Doesn't matter what you're using, by the way. There's a whole video talking about how to understand your drum library. That doesn't matter. But you can use different articulations, different lanes, and different velocity settings, and you can legitimately create something that's like, you could at least create the doubt for even the most seasoned producer who would go, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's how you know you got it. Even if they figure out later their program, they had to sit there and go, man, I think these are real.
Yeah.
And that's how you get it.
Funny, good example. Not a metal example, but a good example. I did a mix stream this week where the drums were all played in by a real drummer on an E-kit.
Yeah.
And using the exact same drum sounds as I would use for someone who'd programmed everything 127. If you didn't know they were programmed drums, like you say, you wouldn't have known.
Yep.
Like there's a little breakdown in the middle with some really tasteful ride work and little cymbal hits that you just wouldn't think to program like that unless you knew to program like that. Which is what catches you, I think, those clever little things.
Exactly. Yeah, I talk about this too, like ghost notes. I have it's like 4-minute long session talking about ghost notes in, straight form, using them with rudiments. I talk about single stroke, double stroke, paradiddle, the paradiddle, the paradiddle diddle, and I talk about the flam tap, and I also demonstrate 8 different types of metal beats. So from the skank beats, variations with the kick drum, the 4 core different types of blast beats, and for those who know who Dick Van Buren is, he has this thing called the Dirk Blast, which is actually just a flam tap, but I show you how to program it. So I'm not just going, here you go, have fun. There's that. There's presentation material where I discuss things and I explain it in detail. I'm pedantic, sue me. But I mean, it's all there, but I demonstrate exactly what I'm talking about. But really, the best part about all this is because I got these questions all the time, is just the way that I work. I'm like, how can I make this really simple to explain? There's got to be a way to systemize it, to create this kind of like literally a step-by-step process. And so that's what I did. So I created a 5-step method where every step is particular, specific. I give you certain things to pay attention to, and then you only deal with it when you get to that step. Because I ran into a guy one time, one-on-one call. He's like, just drum programming is just a slow, laborious process. I have to write and humanize all at the same time. And I'm just like, no, you don't. No, when you're writing the drums, you're getting the creative idea out first. And once the creative idea is out, then you go back and, you fine tune. Then you go back and maybe you humanize it. Then you go back and then you unquantize. See, it's all in a step. And the funny thing is, this happens in the course. You'll see it. I made a pretty big mistake in one of the steps, and I didn't catch it. But the way that I have the steps configured is you pretty much go and double back. You go into the next step, and when you go through those points, you're essentially double checking what you've done. So it works for me too. I've been doing this for 20 years. I still make mistakes. So my own method helped save me from making a pretty big mistake. So, I mean, if that's, and then all that is very much demonstrated. I take a song, one of my own personal compositions from zero. We start with no drums. I go through every single part of the steps. You watch me write them. Okay, every single note, you watch me do everything, and all the way to the end to where we have a finished drum composition. So it's all a lot of demonstration plus all the information as a non-drummer that you just have to know. I mean, our video could easily be 2 hours if I tried to talk about everything in the course. I'm just honestly trying to give all the highlights here.
Well, we've talked about the overview. Let's zone in on one specific thing. Now we said we've let the big secret out the bag that you need to think like a drummer. There's also the technical side, which is easy when you make it easy. You were talking just before we set recording here to me about showing us a particular thing you can do with Reaper specifically, which is, as you know, my wheelhouse, to make things just quicker. Which any time saved is always going to help the creativity, right? So, show us what you were thinking.
Okay, so here we are, right? Adam, how many times have you done this, right? Let's set our grid. I think, what are we at? 200 BPM. Let's just do some kick notes, right? How many times have you done this? Oh, God, isn't that just exhilarating? Just to draw everything in like that? Well,
yeah, nice.
There's a faster way. So I've set up a hotkey here where to the grid, I can just press one button, and now everything's literally split to the grid. But that's just a built-in Reaper function. I show you how to set that hotkey. That's not really the cool thing. Let's say we're at 200 beats per minute here. You're like, you know what, eighth notes? Kind of too slow. I want to go a little bit faster. So watch as the grid magically changes, and I didn't touch anything. I just did a little modifier there. And then now I've got 16th notes. Wow. You know what? I don't want to do that. I want to have triplets. Let me just change the triplets real quick. Triplet eighth notes, same thing. I'm just using my mouse and keyboard, and I can go back and forth between all the different note values within a snap of the finger.
And you've set that up to be just on a button.
Yeah, so I have a couple. I show exactly how to do this in the course. So the mouse wheel, I'm changing the grid with the mouse wheel. This is actually from the RIA pack. Some guy just created this. This is not built into Reaper. And I'll show you how to get all that. It's not a big deal. But I can just hold Shift and mouse wheel. And I have these up here as a visual aid for me to, okay, I'm at eighth notes, and I need 16ths. And I'm just scrolling my mouse right now, holding Shift. I want to go to triplets. I hold Shift C. Now I'm at triplets. I'm just scrolling again.
That's a huge time saver for just having when you got those those bits. Just
yep. And like I got 4 bars highlighted here, so I mean I need 4 bars of double bass. No big deal. 16th notes, 1 button. Now I got 4 bars of double bass. Not a big deal. Let's just set all these to 115. Hit apply, and they're all at 115. Now, the other part of this is like, but you need to go to every other note and simulate, non-dominance, right? Because your non-dominant foot is going to hit softer. Or if you're on a double pedal, it's hitting the off center of the kick head, so it's going to be a softer stroke count. Now, I'm sure in your head you're going, oh, God, I got to hold control. And just, Jesus.
I've spent hours of my life doing that.
Yeah, well, you don't have to do that anymore because I just got this cute little thing here where I can do that, hit it there. Now we're all done. This is this is a third-party thing that I found online. A guy created this. You get it through the RIA pack. It's not built into Reaper, but it's really easy to install and download. And you can see it makes double bass writing, for example, just chef's kiss. Now,
this is why I love Reaper. It's so easily customizable. If it doesn't do what you want, click, 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 and now it does.
Yes, that's absolutely it. And this even can go further than just double bass. If I'm doing a fill, and I know I want it to be 16ths. Let's whatever. So I know I'm going to go on the snare, and I'm going to go just do a run-of-the-mill thing here. I'm going to go snare, tom, 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 right? And I know they're going to be 16th notes. So again, instead of drawing all that in, we can just use shortcuts. So I can just do this, and this is way easier now. I can just use my keyboard. Now I have a roll. What was that, 3 seconds?
Yeah.
So this will facilitate you being, this will facilitate you to be in the zone and be in the musically creative flow. So once your hands get used to the muscle memory of it,
Yeah.
It's not going to be like, oh God, now I need to draw in. Now it's literally be like, all right, just get some double base real quick. Bam, boom. What's going to go on next? Oh, need a fill here. You could even do this, for example, just draw quarter notes and then come in here and do that. It's
Wow.
way simpler. The other cool thing is, again, non-dominance, right? We can select all these. I just click that. Now I can do that. Now I have basically...
So now you get...
Right. Yep. And then I talk about also why I have these buttons showing and hiding sometimes. Like I talk about when I will show and hide velocity and velocity handles. And this is basically due in part because if you're working on something, I found that sometimes if my velocity handles are there, I'll maybe want to try a different tom, and I'll do this. And I'm like,
oh, and you grab it by mistake. Yeah.
So I'll actually, when I get them where I want them, I'll just turn velocity handles off. So there, now I'm just worried about the note. So
that makes
these are
things
just
so
things,
much quicker.
Yeah, these are just things that I have come across in my experience going, yeah, this is kind of annoying. There's got to be a faster way to do this. And there is. Another cool thing, for example, is I have, and these are just things that I found online, but I've spent hours. You know, you've been in the Reaper forums, right? Like 20 page threads, and you find one nugget that's like on the 17th page, post 900. That's me. So now you don't have to do that anymore. Now I found, scripts and stuff where you can do, because watch this. So I can just, that's a custom quick copy. Because normally if you copy, it's Control C, and it's going to copy wherever the cursor is. So that's extra clicks. That's drag, Control C, click where you want it, then Control V. Well, I know that I want it to go to the next B, so I can just hit V, and there it is. So I talk about a lot of these little tricks in Reaper. There's 2 videos about it, dedicated to show you how to set this up so that you can work in the same exact way that I do. And this is just the event properties, Control F2. You can leave this up, actually. You can just hit apply when you're done. And then it always stays up. This always stays up when I'm working on drums. And yeah, it just makes drum programming, technically speaking, very easy. All right. And so it allows you to stay in the creative mind of what you're doing. So instead of, losing focus, it really does happen sometimes if you're sitting here trying to right click and you're like, oh God, what is my grid? And then you got to come up here, or even worse, if you don't have this, you got to come way down here and be like, oh God, what is that? Oh, straight time. Cool. All right.
Make me feel bad now because that's exactly how I do it.
Yep. Now you can just hold shift, mouse wheel, shift T, triplets, mouse wheel. And it just makes experimentation a lot easier. Because here's a great example, really good example. So let's just do our run-of-the-mill thing again. What we're going to do. So let's do this. Yep. Let's set all our velocities, 115, whatever. Now, this happens a lot with real-life drummers. They will start a fill with straight notes, right? But what happens after that often is they will kick into triplets, right? Often it'll be like 16ths into 8th triplets. How easy was that, what I just did? You probably didn't even notice it.
That was super fast. I caught it, but only just. Wow.
I'll back up. So we have these two here.
Yeah, go on. Do it again.
So I went back from triplets to straights just with my shortcut. I adjust the grid with the mouse wheel. I hit my shortcut. Now I have these 16th notes, right? And it's very common to go dun 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 dun, right? So now I can just shift T to triplets. I know these are 8th notes. Done.
Nice.
That's it.
So it's funny that you do a lot more drum programming than I do and have done for a long time, and I'll definitely be jumping on some of those tricks. But it's funny that something that's just come to mind is that a lot of what I've been doing recently, I've been doing a lot of the mixing work really quickly. And I think the reason for that is once you've got your flow and your rhythm and your understanding down, it doesn't cut your time in half. It cuts your time in like 4. because
I mean,
when it's taking you a long time, I don't know if you found this, but you find that when it's taking a long time, you have to stop, you have to take breaks, you forget where you were, you lose focus. Whereas when you're in that zone, it's bah, 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 bah.
Exactly. And so I mean, people have a point when they say it can be laborious sometimes. Absolutely. I'm gonna fix that for you. Basically, you're gonna be able to. And actually, we've stepped back for a second. We're talking about 16ths and 8ths and stuff like that. I also discuss what those are in the course. So if you're a non-drummer and you're kind of confused, like what's a 16th, what's an 8th, how does this all work in the world of drumming? Because a snare is a crack and that's it. You're not gonna sit there and go, all right, 8th note. No, it's just that's it. You play it.
Right.
So that's a big difference between playing guitar. Where like, all right, I need to sustain for a whole note here. A whole note is meaningless for drummers. That's like you hit it and then you just wait for the next beat, basically. But I talk about all the different note lengths and I show them in comparison to a whole note on the grid. Like here's a whole note, here's a half note, here's what they look like together: quarter, eighths, 16ths, and I even talk about what it's like to count a beat, a measure as a drummer. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 1 and a 2 and a 3. I talk about all that stuff because if you're playing guitar, it's the same concept. If you're playing a rip and you're going 1 and a 2 and a da-da-da-da-da-da, now you can just apply that to drums because now you know what a 16th note looks like on the grid and all these things. And the whole idea of the course is I'm giving you as much information as I can from my days of playing drums so that you can take that and you can become creative. And on the creative point, I make a video there where I discuss how you can improve your creativity and become more creative. So everything that I could literally think of to help a person become better at programming, I have included in here. Tons of demonstrations. Like I said, I programmed the ghost notes. I even did the Rosanna halftime shuffle. I programmed that.
Nice.
Let me actually, while we're sitting here, I can just load it up. I can show it to you. So here it is. Here's the entire session of ghost notes. So you can see that they are humanized. Humanized. Look at all this. I talk about all this. Flams, rudiments, paradiddles, how to use them, double strokes. I mean, and the whole point of it is not to be like, well, look at me, look what I can do. It's exactly the opposite. It's to help.
Yeah. It's like, look what you can do.
Exactly. It's to help create references, visual references with what you're hearing so that you can connect the dots. Right. You hear a tom roll and you can go, I get it. All right, yeah, I see what I can do here. And YouTube is freaking amazing now because there are so many great drummers where you can watch them play frame by frame, half speed, all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, there's, like I said, there's so much stuff here. But yeah, we're going to have to stop talking about it eventually.
Yeah. So long story short, programming drums for metal is easy. Check out Scott's course. Link is in the description. It's out today. So go forth and purchase and do the thing. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope you find this useful. Let us know in the comments if you do get the course and if it helps you, because that's what it's there for. So yeah, hopefully we put this out. Well, I say you put this out into the world, and I'm just letting people know about it. And right. I mean, I know you put tons of effort into this because before you actually filmed the course, you sent me kind of the pre-plan of because Scott's the kind of person where he will plan out everything to the nth detail. And I read it and I was like, whoa. And just like, do you think I've covered everything? Yeah. Yeah, and that was just like the Cliff Notes. That wasn't even like paragraphs. That was just headings. I was just like, that covers everything. Wow.
It's literally like this should literally be the last resource anyone needs because again, it's just like Guitar Tone Mastery. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm explaining why things have to work a certain way. It's all concept. So if you can use whatever drum software you have right now, it's gonna work. Okay, because I show you how to study what you have. I show you how to find the velocity ranges, So yeah, because a common question that I got a lot, hey, what velocity should the snare be? I don't know.
Yeah, what are you trying to do with it?
So I show you how to study the ranges so you can understand where you're soft, medium, hard, very hard, or even because some libraries try to skirt it a little bit. They'll have just 2 velocity laters, and then they just turn the volume down for the softer ones. You have to know stuff like that so you can work around it,
Right.
But it works for every program out there on the market. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, that outline was 10 pages long. I spent months. I started working on this last year.
Wow.
So it's been a long time. But
Yeah.
I'm really, really looking forward to people getting their hands on this, and I really think people are going to understand, hey, you know what? This actually can be a really interesting and musically provoking process, and I just want people's songs to be better. You know what I mean? That's the end of the day. Because drums are literally kind of the most important thing in metal. I mean, guitarists and vocalists really hate to hear that. But
It's the engine room. Without it, it doesn't work. Yeah.
So it's but what's that British word? Blithering on? Is that the word that we would use here?
Blithering.
Yeah. So
That is
Adam,
what we
it's
have
always
been
a
doing.
pleasure.
So, yes.
I
Thank you
always
everybody
love
for
being on
watching.
your channel, man. It's always
It's
good.
always fun. So go check that out, and we will see you guys very soon. Taiko, goodbye.
Hey everyone, that might be the end of the video, but if you fancy carrying on this conversation, we have a Discord server, link is in the description. We're also on Patreon, which is something you can really help us with. We also are on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Hop Hole Studios. See you there.